wasn't until 1985 until someone made an Alice in Wonderland movie that was even that close to the original Lewis Carroll books says a lot about how difficult it can be to adapt such a work. After all, Irwin Allen and Walt Disney were far from the only people to create their own screen version of the story. There were at least 4 attempts at live-action Alice in Wonderland movies made in the United States from 1910 to 1933 before Disney's 1951 animated film was created. Even though that movie didn't perform great in theaters, it still made enough of an impact that there wasn't another attempt in America to adapt the story for the big screen, well, unless you count the 1976 porno, until Tim Burton's infamous pseudo-sequel version in 2010. On the flip side, though, there were at least 7 Alice adaptations after 1951 made for television just in the US alone before Irwin Allen's version came out in '85. After that, outside of the Adventures in Wonderland TV series made for the Disney Channel, there were no more TV programs based on the books and characters made by any American production company. Until 1999, when Hallmark, of all companies, released a new TV movie that premiered on NBC in February of 1999. This movie, which was produced by Robert Halmy and his son Robert Jr., and like its '85 predecessor, did feature its own all-star cast, was a modest success when it came out, being the 6th highest rated program for the week it premiered. And it did win a number of Primetime Emmy Awards, mostly for its visual effects. But how well does it hold up, especially in the wake of what we've already seen? Let's take a look at the 1999 Alice in Wonderland movie and see for ourselves. We open on, "Oh, good night, run for your lives! The movie is trying to cut us in half!" Oh, this is much creepier than a rabbit cave with lightning inside.
Alice, what's the matter, child? You look pale as a ghost.
I can't do it, Nanny.
Have you seen my...
Mummy, please don't make me sing.
She's a little nervous, Mum.
Perfectly natural, I've seen it often.
Alice, you promised me and your father. All the guests are so looking forward to it.
So, yeah. While the last film established the story with Alice grumbling about not yet being grown up enough to hang with the grown-ups, this one starts with an Alice grumbling about having to hang with the grown-ups. Though maybe for good use because she's being used for their entertainment. This might have been funnier back before we learned of what became of Britney Spears. So Alice gets stage fright and ducks out the back door to hide under an apple tree, where she stares at this. Before, of course, she sees, "Oh, good grief, what fresh hell is this?" Dude, one word, decaf. I really don't want to be too critical here, because the animatronics and puppets for this movie were made by Jim Henson's Creature Shop. But still, how do you make red buttons in a cheap stage theater costume look less freaky by comparison? So I probably should talk about the Alice for this movie. I definitely don't have a problem with going with a brunette for this version because, well, Alice was never actually established as a blonde until, you know, that movie. Chalk that up to another Disney influence that got into the '85 film, as Natalie Gregory had to wear a blonde wig in it. But still, Tina Majorino, who yes went on to play Dab in Napoleon Dynamite and Mac in Veronica Mars, was 14 years old when this movie premiered. She was actually born the same year the last Alice movie came out. Now, it's pretty clear these filmmakers wanted a slightly older version of Alice, so maybe it's not quite as bad as, say, casting a 16-year-old Judy Garland as Dorothy Gale just for name recognition. But as for why they wanted an older character, we'll get to that later. For what it's worth, when this Alice falls down the rabbit hole, we do at least see why the special effects got the praise that they did. Unlike the last movie, we get to see the slow descent among shelves and pictures and the like that Lewis Carroll described in the book itself. But then there are the effects they use when Alice shrinks and grows. Yeah, let's just say it comes off quite a bit as if they were showing off what they can do with computer animatronics. Anyway, after we go through the whole procedure of Alice's attempts to get through the small door into the beautiful garden, we eventually get her falling into the pool of tears she created, and she swims away into a sewer? And then the mouse she's been following turns into Ken Dodd in a ratty overcoat? Am I sure I didn't just drink from a strange bottle? Yeah, almost immediately we get into the weirdest part of the movie. It's more or less the caucus race chapter as far as the dialogue goes, but it takes place in some sort of library, and the race itself is like MC Escher choreographed it or something. And Alice doesn't even take place, even though the whole purpose was to get her dry, and I don't even know what words are coming out of my mouth, and we're only 20 minutes into the movie! And it's in this library that the White Rabbit appears again and orders Alice to get him his gloves, and she finds her way to the rabbit's house by opening up one of the books. I'm gonna be honest, when I first watched this back when it premiered, it put me off for the rest of the movie, trying to figure out what the frack they were going for here.
I'm sure it will make something interesting happen. I just hope it makes me grow large again. Ugh, that's enough.
Interesting point. I got a comment on the last review about how difficult the growing and shrinking scenes must have been, and there was my own joke about how they must have had only enough money for a few. The budget for this movie was $21 million in 1998. Wonder where most of that money went. Oh, and this movie steals the "There Goes Bill" line from the Disney version as well. It's become as much of a meme as you Spoony Bard at this point. After Alice shrinks herself free of the rabbit's home, we get the part with the giant puppy from the book that most other adaptations leave out, before finally moving on to the caterpillar, who is played by Ben Kingsley in this movie.
Major Caterpillar, ribbon and bar, late of Her Majesty's foot and light, a true son of England and his flag, what? Who are you?
I don't really know.
If you don't, I don't.
And I think we get him transforming into a butterfly here, which would have also been lifted from Walt's movie. We do at least get the bit about the mushroom here in a way, as it helps Alice grow back to normal size right in front of the Duchess's house. Where I basically have two things to point out about the next couple scenes. One, the Duchess's baby here is far more frightening than the Jabberwock was in the last film, and its turning into a pig is actually an improvement. And two, the Cheshire Cat in this movie is played by Whoopi Goldberg. And to her credit, she does at least try to be as nutty as Sterling Holloway's version.
But I don't want to meet mad people.
But you can't help it. Everyone here is mad. I'm mad. You're mad. It's only by chance and careful planning if you're not.
How do you know I'm mad?
Because you're here.
She, of course, directs Alice to the tea party of the Dormouse, the March Hare, and Big Head, Big Head, Big Head! Okay, for what it's worth, the effects crew made Martin Short's head this size and shape because this scene above all was trying to pay tribute to Sir John Tenniel's original artwork for the books. Good on them for trying, I suppose, but still, yeesh. This is why some things don't work as well in live action.
Twinkle, twinkle, little duck, how I wonder what you're at. Up above the world you fly, like a tea tray in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little twinkle, you don't squeak, but only twinkle, twinkle. Twinkle, 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 little bee.
So next up, we do get to Alice finding her way back to the room with all the doors through the door in the tree, but here she's now already the right size for the door to the garden, but it's not a problem because the table with the key is the right size for her as well. And when she opens the door, she sees some type of mirror image of herself. And am I sure I'm not the one who's been eating mushrooms here? And here's as good a time as any to bring up probably the biggest criticism of the movie, which very likely ties in to why these filmmakers went with an older girl in the role. In most, if not all, of the prior adaptations, Alice's motivation to enter these strange and wondrous worlds came from a childish curiosity and intrigue. Here, she's more or less motivated by fear. And yes, Alice's fears were a plot point in the last movie, but that was her need to overcome her childish fears in order to achieve her desire to grow up. This Alice and her stage fright of performing in front of her family's friends seems to come from her wanting to avoid growing up. As such, Tina Majorino's performance, even if it's what the director wanted, just comes off as too morbid and deadpan from what we normally expect from this character. I can only think of one other version that used this type of motivation for Alice, and yeah. So we finally meet the King and Queen of Hearts, and my eyes, the goggles, they do nothing!
And who is this?
Yeah, this queen, as played by Miranda Richardson, is actually more... Okay, she's on a par with Helena Bonham Carter, but that's still not saying much. Also, when she calls for the heads of the cards who were painting her roses, Alice saves them by...
Quick, jump in here.
How did she know she could do that? Was that apron made in Hyrule or something? No one gets your reference to that bad 1980s cartoon! Oh, shut up! So, remember how we were at the 3/4 point of the first movie when we reached this stage of the story last time? Well, here, we're only halfway through! I pointed out last time how adding in the scene with the mock turtle and the griffin bogs the story down. Here they really stretch it out by, you guessed it, adding in a bunch of material that was in the second book. It seems mostly to pad the runtime and add in more big-name guest stars, like Gene Wilder as the Mock Turtle, Christopher Lloyd as the White Knight, and Robbie Coltrane and George Wendt as Tweedledee and Tweedledum. I think they're all supposed to be there to help show Alice how to get over their fears, but the only piece that's really important to this plot is the part with the turtle and the griffin, because the lobster quadrille dance they teach Alice, kind of a plot point later.
See how eagerly the lobsters and the turtles all advance. They are waiting on the shingle. Will you come and join the dance? Dance.
So after Dee and Dum try a battle that's even lamer than a TNA Impact match, and Alice is chased by smoke, She is taken to the trial, and everything pretty much goes as written in this original chapter, except for this weird musical number the Hatter chimes out, and the knave claiming he's independently wealthy, and it being very hard to pay attention to it all with all the freaky imagery around. And we get something else they ripped off from Disney's version, as Alice clearly eats the mushroom piece she still had, which is what causes her to grow in the middle of the courtroom. She then calls out the Queen for trying to try a clearly innocent man since the tarts are still there and everything, and that ultimately leads to this.
Alice, don't you care what people think?
Not when I'm right.
Are you so confident, young lady?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am confident.
Then you don't need us anymore.
And the movie ends with Alice coming home and agreeing to perform at the party, only instead of cherry ripe, she does...
Will you, won't you join the dance? Will you, won't you join the dance? Will you, won't you join the dance?
So, was all this planned? Is the point being that the White Rabbit lured Alice to Wonderland in order to teach herself confidence? Or was this all from her own subconscious trying to help her overcome her fears? Or was this the Red King's doing, since yes, that scene did appear and seemed to go nowhere itself? Curiouser and curiouser, my fat white ass! This movie, let's face it, it was made for the visual effects first and foremost. Very little detail is given to the story structure at large. I know the original story doesn't have that much structure as it is, but it's definitely lacking in this version. And all those effects, they really have gone into Uncanny Valley territory over the years. It's really sad because Hallmark and Robert Halmy did make a number of other direct-to-TV adaptations of classic stories that turned out a lot better, one of which I do plan to get to in the near future. Still, after watching both of these editions back to back, I think we've proven that Alice in Wonderland, even being the beloved story that it is still a story that needs significant alteration in order to fit the structure of a motion picture. A perfect verbatim adaptation just isn't going to flow properly, and if you want one, the one that plays in your own head is ultimately the best. So just try to enjoy whichever adaptation you feel pays the best tribute to Lewis Carroll's original work, be it Hallmark's, Irwin Allen's, or Walt Disney's. The original Disney! We don't talk about that other one! Ultimately, Alice in Wonderland is one of the biggest examples of how an original work will always be its own entity. And anytime you try to adapt a work like it, you're still creating your own entity. Next time on TV Trash, we'll be taking a look at what happens when someone does take an adaptation and try to make a sequel out of it. Next time.